Good morning, students. Today we will start our lesson from the book of history, that is our first chapter, French Revolution. What do you understand by the word revolution? Revolution means change. So we will discuss on the changes that took place in France. What were the causes for the breakout and what incidents happened? We shall look into this matter. French Revolution is a landmark in history which brought changes in the whole system of medieval period. It was from this revolution even our country, India, along with many others, borrowed the idea of democracy, of liberty, equality and fraternity. French Revolution started in 1789 and lasted till 1799. Now let us see what happened. Here, on the morning of 14th July 1789, the city of Paris was in a state of alarm. The king had ordered a troops of army to move in the city. The king sent the army for different motive to control the situation in Paris, but the people, they misunderstood this, and some rumors had already spread that the king would order the army to open fire upon the citizens. Around 7,000 men, and including women, gathered and formed a group as People's Militia. Militia means military soldiers, okay? First, they broke into government building in search of some weapons. They believed that there were some weapons in there. And secondly, the fortress Bastille was attacked. They killed the Bastille commander and the prisoners were also released. The fortress was also destroyed. You can see in the figure, the fortress is being demolished and the people here are fighting. The pieces of stones from the fortress were sold in the markets to those people who wished to keep it as a souvenir of its destruction. Souvenir means something to keep for a remembrance. So, in the following days, there was more protest and riots in Paris and the countryside. People were against the high price of bread. These riots were the very beginning of the changes in the worldwide, and it followed to the event that led to the execution of the king in France. Monarchy was overthrown. How and why did this happen? We will see this as we keep discussing one by one. Now let us see the French society during the late 18th century. Louis XVI, who was of the Bourbon dynasty, was the king of France in 1774. He was 20 years old and married to Austrian Princess Marie Antoinette. Before he became the king, there was many wars which took place and much expense was already done. So the financial resource of France eventually drained. Also, the maintenance of the court of the Palace of Versailles was so high that it had extravagant expense. Under the rule of Louis XVI, France helped 13 American colonies to gain independence from the common enemy, that is Britain. This war also caused high expense. As they did not have enough money, they took loan. Then the moneylender started to charge 10% interest on each loan, which was very, very high. The financial problems made the government to increase the tax to meet its regular expenses such as the cost of maintaining an army, the court, and running government offices or universities. Eventually, France was poor. The problem now lies in the payment of tax. Who paid the tax? French society in the 18th century was divided into 3 estates. It means population is divided or ranked in 3 parts. These are the 3 estates. In the first estate, it consists of population of clergy. Clergy are the members of the church. They are the highest in the ranking. They enjoyed privileges by birth. They are given status and rights by inherited bloodline and not by abilities and capacities. And in the second, that is nobility, also known as nobles. They also enjoyed privileges by birth. Both of the first estate and second estate were exempted from paying taxes to the state. They did not pay any tax. Nobles owned 60% of the land as well, whereas the members of the third estate, they had to pay tax. Under third estate, it is again divided into three. First are big businessmen, merchants, court officials, lawyers, etc. And in the second, there are peasants and artisans. And in the third, there are the small peasants, landless labor, and servants. In the third estate, some are rich, like the educated and the traders. People like small peasants, landless laborer, and servants are poor. Taxes were paid in the form of tithes and taille. Tithes was collected in the church. Taille was a direct tax to be paid directly to the state. The tax system itself seems unfair here, because only the third estate had to pay. And the peasants also had a 90% of population, but only some of them had land where they cultivated. With this, there also existed feudal system. It is a system where a landowner hires labor to work and provide land to tenants in exchange for their loyalty and service. Mostly landless people had to work under them. This was not only the problem. In the subsection 1.1, the struggle to survive, here the population of France rose from about 23 million in 1715 to 23 million in 1789. 1 million is equal to 10 lakhs. So approximately 5 lakhs people, the population increased. Because of this, there was an increase in demand for food grains. As there was less supply of food than demand, the price of bread, which was their staple diet that they used to eat on a daily basis, rapidly the price of the bread rose. And there were workers that were employed as laborers, whose owner fixed their wages, that is salary. But their amount of salary was very less and it could not meet the expense with the price that was increased in food items. Because of this, the rich got richer and poor became poorer. After this, situation became worse when they were hit by drought or hail that reduced the harvest. Sometimes they did not receive enough rain. But sometimes it would rain so much that there was hailstorm and it would damage the harvest. So there was no availability of food. This led to subsistence crisis. Subsistence crisis means a situation where basic necessities of livelihood cannot be met, like food. This picture here shows how rich is becoming richer and poor is becoming poorer. This man, who is a noble man, he is collecting tax in the form of money and in the form of food grains from the poor. The poor person has to offer whatever he has got, so he is giving his little earned money and grains to the noble man. It shows how unfair the society is treating to its people. Now in figure number 4, here there are 8 boxes given, out of which 3 boxes are already filled. And in these empty boxes, you have to fill, and the options are already given here. And these filled boxes will give you an idea what to fill in the next, and what should be filled before that. So this will be your homework. Now in the next subsection 1.3, we will see a growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. Because of the unfair situation of increasing taxes and food scarcity, the peasants and workers had revolted few times in the past. But they did not succeed due to lack of the means and programs to carry out full-scale measures that would bring about a change in the social and economic order. The groups from the third estate, that is the educated and prosperous one, had begun to form social groups. It happened all in the 18th century. And these emerging groups were termed as the middle class. They earned wealth through trading overseas and from the manufacturing of goods such as woolen and silk textiles. These items were bought by the richer members of society. Also, they exported the items. Along with merchants and manufacturers, there were also professionals such as lawyers and other administrative officials. As they were exposed to the world and had idea of outside world, they opposed privileges by birth. They believed a person's social position must depend on his merit. Philosophers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau put forward the idea of envisaging a society based on freedom and equal laws and opportunities for all. John Locke, in his book Two Treatises of Government, opposed the doctrine of the divine and absolute right of the monarch. It means that the monarch, that is the king's right to rule, is directly from the will of God, and it cannot be subjected to any earthly authority. No one can go against God's will. Also, Rousseau carried the idea forward, proposing a form of government based on social contract between people and their representatives. It is the agreement between the people and the ruler. Montesquieu also, in his book The Spirit of Laws, he proposed a division of power within the government between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary, which we witness in today's world in democracy. These ideas of the philosophers had spread among the people and was discussed everywhere in salons and coffee houses too. The news of Louis XVI's plan to impose the increase of taxes made people angry, and they protested against the system of privileges. So students, today we will stop here and end our class. This was the very first introduction of the French Revolution. Read the lesson carefully on your own and try to understand the events. This will help to understand the further topics. So we will continue in the next class. Thank you.